Hello, students of world history. This is a lecture on the Roman Republic, and this is Unit 2, Part 4. First, we have to talk about the origins of Rome. It is just a city built on the Tiber River near the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, really kind of in the middle of what becomes Italy. Early on in its history, it was dominated by people called the Etruscans, and the Etruscans had established a kind of dictatorship or monarchy over the local people, the Romans. The Romans didn't like this very much, and they were able to overthrow this Etruscan king in 509 BC and vow that they would never be dominated again by another king-like figure. Because they decided that they were going to have rule by many people instead of one, this is why it's called a republic, the Roman Republic. Within this Roman Republic, there were social classes, and oftentimes these social classes conflicted with one another. At this point in time, we can talk about the patricians, who were wealthy landowners who really held all of the power. The plebeians were a much larger group of people that were made up of common farmers, artisans, and merchants within Rome itself. Eventually, the patricians and the plebeians were similar in that they both had political power. But they were different in that, at first, the patricians could hold the important offices or positions in government, while the plebeians could really only vote for and serve as what they called tribunes as part of assemblies. An additional way that the plebeians got to defend themselves against the patricians was by the creation of a written law code. Before the 12 tables were written, the patricians would kind of just tell everybody what the law was and just make things up for their own benefit. Once they had a written law code that said that all free citizens had the right to protection under the law, it didn't matter whether you were a rich patrician or a more common plebeian, you were still going to be protected by the law. The Republican government was a combination of many different kinds of governments that we talked about when we talked about Greece. There were a couple of executives, almost king-like figures or monarchs called the consuls. They were chosen for one-year terms. The patricians were represented in the Senate, which was a kind of oligarchy because it's ruled by a few people who happen to be very wealthy. This Senate really greatly influenced policy during the Republic. There were also the creation of tribunal assemblies, which were elected by plebeians to make laws for the plebeians. So this is a more democratic kind of institution. Finally, if there was a emergency that happened, oftentimes a dictator would be appointed, and that dictator might remind you of the classic Greek tyrant. The Republic expanded quite a bit, starting in, or by the time 265 BC rolled around, they had conquered most all of what you and I know of as Italy. And as they did this, they created a system of roads which were really great for trade. It also allowed their army to rapidly progress from one place to another. And they were able to economically and dominate more and more territory because of this. As they started to conquer areas outside of what you and I know of as Italy, they divided the people that they had conquered or people that they came in contact with into basically three different groups. The Italians, or people who live on the Italian peninsula, were full voting citizens of the Roman Empire. People beyond that who were conquered were non-voting citizens, and they also came in contact with people who became friends with them, just allies, who weren't citizens at all, but supplied troops for the Roman army and were friendly. One place that was not so friendly was called Carthage. You can see on the map that Carthage dominated the western part of the Mediterranean at one point in time. And Carthage didn't like Rome expanding, and it felt threatened by the Roman expansion. And so there was an inevitable clash between these two, it says empires there, but don't take that literally yet, but these two places that were in control of the Western Mediterranean. Rome won after a long struggle, really three different wars, and took control over what Carthage once had. So this really allows Rome to expand greatly in the western part of the Mediterranean. Julius Caesar was a successful general, and he comes about as the conflict between rich people and poor people started to happen more and more. As they were conquering more and more territory, there were more and more slaves available for purchase. And the rich people were buying slaves and owning larger and larger farms and using the slave labor to farm on those farms. Meanwhile, poor farmers were selling their land to the rich farmers because they couldn't compete with them. Generals like Julius Caesar recruited some of these poor farmers by promising them land. And Caesar was conquering more and more territory. He became successful not just with the poor farmers he was recruiting, but also with the people who were living in the Roman Empire who liked a successful guy. Caesar decided that he would go to Rome and seize power and become dictator. He had a really pretty successful rule then for a short period of time. He was once again very popular. He gave citizenship to more people inside of the empire so that they could vote. He created jobs building public buildings. He paid his soldiers more and all of the soldiers in the Roman army. As he was conquering territories, he was creating colonies with land for poor people. And all of this success was good, except that a number of the senators didn't want to have a dictator or somebody ruling over them. They thought that they should be able to also influence political policy. And so they hatched a plot to stab him to death for being a tyrant, even though he was a popular tyrant. The Republic then started to fall apart because a civil war broke out between those who had assassinated Julius Caesar and Julius Caesar's supporters. After much fighting between the two sides, Caesar's son, Octavian, won the civil war and was named Supreme Emperor or Augustus Caesar. This is really when rule by one person starts to take over, even though the Senate and the tribunal assemblies still existed during the Roman Empire.